Hello, everybody, and welcome to this YouTube Live. I am delighted to be here with you today and so glad to have you all joining me here on the Sacred Planet YouTube channel. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to hit subscribe, and that way you'll get notifications whenever I go live and whenever I have my latest updates. I am Jocelyn Starfeather, and today I'm going to be presenting to you the Astrology of the Lionsgate 2024. So let's dive right in. I will share my screen with you here. And so we are in an extremely powerful time right now. This month of August has astrology that is just off the charts. So I'm going to tell you more about that today. And first, we're going to start with the Leo new moon, and then we're going to talk about the Lion's Gate and what is the Lion's Gate really, because there's actually a lot of misinformation out there about the Lion's Gate. There's a lot of very interesting ideas about what it might be, and I'm going to share with you the real story, the ancient story from ancient Egypt and where this originated. Of course, 3,000 years ago, they didn't call it the Lion's Gate. That is a new term that we have given it now. It's a really cool name that we use for it right now. But in the ancient times, it was the heliacal rising of Sirius. And so that is actually still happening in our skies today, right now, in these current weeks. So I'll tell you more about all of that. We also have a Venus-Mercury conjunction, Mercury retrograde, a Mars-Jupiter conjunction, and a full moon in Aquarius, all coming up that are all really extremely powerful. So we will talk about all of that today. Now, I want to tell you just a little bit about me in case you don't know me yet. I am Jocelyn Starfeather. I am a visibility coach for visionary entrepreneurs, a spiritual alchemist, an astrologer, and I've been creating global conferences since 2015, bringing people together all around the world to have these amazing conversations on all kinds of visionary and very forward-thinking, groundbreaking topics. And my business is called Sacred Planet. And my mission truly is to guide you in breaking free from everything that has held you back in the past. So you can learn more at my website, which is wearesacredplanet.com, and my YouTube channel, which if you're watching this, you have already found my Sacred Planet YouTube channel. So as I mentioned, hit subscribe, check out my other videos, and there's lots of amazingness for you here on my YouTube channel. All right, so let's start with where we are right now as I'm recording this. We are in the energies of the new moon in Leo. And this new moon is happening at 12 degrees of Leo. You can see the chart for the new moon right here. So the sun and moon are together at 12 degrees and 33 minutes of Leo. Now, this is a beautiful new moon. The energies are very calming, very favorable. So the sun and moon here are sextile to Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. And you can see that Mars and Jupiter are lining up and getting ready to have a conjunction, which will happen on August 14th. And I will tell you a lot more about that soon. And the sun and moon here are also trine to the north node at 8 degrees of Aries and sextile to the south node at 8 degrees of Libra. So these are very positive energies. These are very calming and soothing energies. This new moon, because of that trine to the north node and sextile to the south node, is connecting in a very positive way with our destiny, with both our past and who we have been, and our future, who we're becoming. So this time around the new moon, I would say August 4th, 5th, and 6th, especially, are really beautiful times to set your intentions for who you are becoming. And especially around the Leo themes, which I'll tell you a little more about here. Here are the cosmic energetics of Leo. So any of these qualities that you want to bring more into your life, or that you want to really embody or work with in any way, are going to be especially available to you now at the new moon in Leo and in the days following it, even in the 2 weeks following the new moon, as the moon is waxing, because this is the energy that has been planted for us, the seeds that are being planted for us right now. And we get to continue working with this, especially as the sun continues through Leo. So the cosmic energies of Leo are regal, noble, and bold. And this is about true leadership, right? This is about the very benevolent leader who has true care and compassion for everyone in the kingdom, so to speak. But this is really important for us to pay attention to at this time, this concept of leadership, because Leo and those especially born under the sign of Leo were recognized in ancient times as the queens and the kings that would rise into power. And we are really experiencing a crisis of leadership in our world right now. We are seeing a lot of false leaders. We are seeing a lot of leaders who are very misguided and making decisions based on greed or ego or power or money or whatever those things are, right? And we are ready for an uprising of a new kind of leadership, and Leo is an amazing archetype to guide us in that. Because Leo has the positive aspects of the ego. Leo has the willpower and the confidence to complete the mission, right? To do what we came here to do. And Leo is very courageous. Leo is centered in the heart. The sign of Leo is connected to the heart chakra. And the word for heart in many languages is the word for courage, right? Especially like French is one example. Cœur is the word for heart. That means courage, right? So Leo is centered in the heart and has the courage of the true-hearted one. Leo is also eager to be visible and to change the world. You know, Leo is the actor or the actress on stage or the musician on stage singing their heart out, clearly, fully expressing themselves and just loving every minute, right? So this person can be a very, very good, strong leader. And so I really invite everybody watching to think about, how are you called to be a leader? Because the world needs you. The world needs new leaders. The world needs especially healers, light workers, empaths, intuitives, visionaries to step up and be the leaders going forward. And I know that many of you listening are already doing that in beautiful ways. And Leo invites us to lean into, how can we bring even more of our truth, even more of our leadership, our nobility, our boldness, our courage forward. Leo is also very creative. This is about creative self-expression, and there's a fun and playful energy to that creativity. And this is about sharing our voice as well. And we see the lion, you know, this image of the lion opening its mouth and roaring, you know, loudly, right? So sharing one's voice with courage. Now, these Leo days are really powerful times to connect with our guides who are felines. So Sekhmet, for example, in the Egyptian mythology. But if you also have a jaguar guide or a lion or a tiger or a cheetah guide, these are amazing guides to be connecting with during this Leo time. And that brings us to the Sphinx, which is a lion. So here's the Sphinx, the amazing Sphinx on the Giza Plateau. And this is a view of, if you have the special permission to walk down and stand between the paws of the Sphinx, right? This is a picture looking right into that passageway between the paws of the Sphinx that leads to the dream stela there in the center. So the Sphinx was originally a lion. You can see that the head is too small. So we know, you know, there's a lot of evidence that the head was recarved to be this pharaoh's head at some point, possibly Pharaoh Khafre. But originally the head was full size. It was a size that matched the body. And there are different theories. Some say maybe that it had the head of a hawk and the body of a lion. Other theories said it had the body of a lion and the head of a lion. I really feel it was a lion. You know, this is a powerful being here. We have the lion tail, which you can't see in the image, but it wraps around over here on the right side of the Sphinx. And these paws are just massive, right? These are the lion paws, the beautiful, beautiful lion paws. And so I believe, and the tradition that I have learned from believes, that this is a female lion. And that she was here holding the power of the land. and she is continually facing east. Now she faces east for eternity. She will see every sunrise that there ever is on the eastern horizon there in Egypt. And so why is she watching the eastern horizon? Why is that so important? Well, in ancient Egypt, they paid very special attention to what stars or planets might be rising on the eastern horizon. And the most important one of them in the whole year was when the star Sirius rose on the eastern horizon just before the sun, just before the moment of dawn. And this is the heliacal rising of Sirius. And this is what we're actually celebrating at the Lion's Gate, the heliacal rising of Sirius. Now, this is a picture of Sirius here, or an illustration of Sirius. Sirius is a beautiful, bright blue star that seems to flash with all the colors of the rainbow if you gaze at it in the nighttime sky. And this beautiful star, Sirius, for the ancient Egyptians, is the great goddess Isis, or Iset. And it is very close in the sky to the constellation Orion. And Orion is Osiris, or Sa in the ancient Egyptian language. So these two beloveds, Isis and Osiris, Sirius and Orion, travel through the sky together. Now there is really important mythology connecting them. And so let me tell you the story of Isis and Osiris. And you may have heard this story before, but listen carefully, because I'm going to tell it perhaps with a little more detail and a little more meaning than you might have heard before, and especially as related to the Lion's Gate. So we have the beautiful great goddess Isis and her husband and brother Osiris. They are children of the great goddess Nut, the sky goddess Nut, and the earth god Geb. And there were other children. There were also Set and Nephthys and Horus the elder. And so Isis and Osiris were married actually when they were still in Nut's womb, even before they were born. They were beloveds to one another. And when they were born, they came down to the earth and they acted as great civilizing influences. They brought benevolence to the land. They brought order and structure and a good way of living, a good way of life to the people. And the people loved them. The people loved Isis and Osiris so much and honored them. And so they were held in very high regard. Now, their brother, Set, was quite jealous of this. And so Set was also in love with Isis, but he couldn't be with her. And he was really jealous of how much everybody loved and admired Osiris, his brother. And so he came up with a very tricky and evil plan. So what Set did was he threw a big party. He invited everybody in all the land, and he had a contest at this party. He had a coffin especially made to perfectly fit the body of his brother, Osiris. And he didn't tell anyone that it was made for Osiris. He just said he had this coffin, and the contest was everybody gets a chance to try to lay down in the coffin, and whoever fits perfectly inside of the coffin wins the contest and wins this beautiful, very ornate coffin that was made with gold and lapis lazuli and all these beautiful things. And so everybody's very jovial. They come to the party, they're singing and dancing and eating and enjoying, and they're all trying out the coffin. And so each person lies down in the coffin, and Set says, nope, not quite your size, next. And the next person lays down. And so when Osiris came up and, accepted this contest from his brother and laid down in the coffin, Set slammed the coffin lid shut and threw it in the river and sent it on down the river. And Osiris passed away in the coffin. Now, Isis was not there at the moment when this happened, and she found out later, and she was grieving and crying and mourning for the loss of her dear beloved husband. And she went out searching for this coffin. And she searched and searched. Her sister Nephthys assisted her in the search. And finally, they found the coffin. It had been wrapped up in the roots of a great tree that was assisting Isis and Nephthys, because it had stopped the coffin from going on further down the river and had kept it trapped in this place. And so that tree became very sacred to Osiris. And so Isis and Nephthys opened the coffin. They found the deceased body of Osiris inside. They were mourning and crying, but they were happy that they had found his body. And they made preparations to bring his body back where he could be properly honored and buried. However, Set found out that they had found Osiris, and he came there and he cut Osiris's body into 42 pieces and threw them to the farthest reaches of the land. And so poor Isis at this point, you can imagine, she's been through quite a lot. She's crying and mourning again, and she and Nephthys set out to gather all of the pieces of Osiris and bring them back and put them back together. And they do manage to do this. And so they bring the pieces back, and together with the magic of Thoth, they bring Osiris back to life. And there's great celebration. And they are, Isis and Osiris then are able to come together and to conceive their son Horus. Now, Horus is very important in this story, but I'm not going to go into great detail about him. But he goes on, as when he grows up and comes into his maturity, to become the sun god of Egypt and to avenge the death of his father and to go on and create great order and beauty once again throughout the land. But Osiris cannot stay in human form, even though he has been temporarily resurrected. He needs to go on to his true destiny, and his true destiny is to be the lord of the great Duat. Now, the Duat is translated as the underworld, but it's really not the same as the underworld that we understand from the Greek and Roman mythologies with Pluto and Hades, and it's underground and it's kind of like hell and, you know, this kind of thing. That's not what the Duat is. So the Duat for the ancient Egyptians is high up in the sky. It is in the northern stars by the imperishable, the immortal stars, because this is where the ancient Egyptians understand that the souls, or the Ba of the people, goes after they are deceased. It goes out and becomes one with the stars to the north. And so this is where Osiris now must go. And he goes and he becomes the Lord of the Duat. And he is located in the stars. And that is why we see him as the constellation Orion. And he and Isis, Sirius, are always traveling together through the sky. So this story is very powerful for so many reasons, and it is deeply connected with the Lion's Gate. So what happened at the Lion's Gate is not only is it the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, but also the Lion's Gate time, which is in late July and early August of each year, is the time when in ancient Egypt, in the original times before there were dams built in the Nile and this kind of thing, when the Nile was flowing with its natural cycles of flooding and drought and flooding and drought, the ancient Egyptians experienced a time of drought from about the middle of May till about middle or late July every single year. And during these months, the land would dry up, the river would dry up, the crops would all turn brown, the land turned brown, and life felt very uncertain. And some years the drought was very severe. Other years it was not as severe, but this was a time of great uncertainty for the people of ancient Egypt. And it just so happened, and perhaps this is not a synchronicity, right? This is actually natural order and cosmic law, that the great goddess Isis, the star Sirius in the sky, disappears every year from about the middle of May till the middle to end of July, every single year as seen in the sky from Egypt. And that just so happens to be the time when the land dies and turns brown and life is not certain. So this is the time when Sirius is too close to the sun to be seen from the earth, and it is considered that the great goddess Isis is in the underworld during this time. So when she reappears in the morning sky just before the dawn during the Lion's Gate, right? And this happens every year in late July and early August. It just happens to be the same moment in time when the Nile floods again. Now, the water of the Nile flows from south to north. And so what it means when the Nile floods, it means that the mountains to the south in Africa, the great snows are melting and the water can come flowing back down the Nile again. turning everything green, filling the land with life once again, creating the floods that brought life to the land around the Nile. And this would happen at the exact same time every year as the great goddess returns to the sky. So that is why this is such a powerful time. That is why we still celebrate this time today, the Lion's Gate. And what happens at this time is that the land comes back to life. Now, in the mythology, Osiris is the land and he is the people. Now you can see here, this is an image from Nefertari's tomb. Osiris is shown with green skin. This has great meaning. He is the greenery of the land. He is the life force that keeps everything going and that brings the sacredness of life back to us. So he is us. And when he is dismembered and torn apart into 42 pieces, this is speaking directly to us. This is speaking to what has happened from that time of ancient Egypt till now. We have been dismembered, right? We have been taught this separation consciousness. We have been taught to be divisive, and we have been torn apart in many ways. But what's happening now is what happens at the Lion's Gate every year. We are remembering. We are being put back together, right? We are remembering the sacredness of life again, the remembrance of all of this life and the sacredness of the world we live in is rising up in us once again, and our life is becoming renewed. And we're not going to put up with separation concepts anymore, right? We're not going to be dismembered. We are remembering ourselves. So Osiris is us. Now, like all of us, this innocent king, Osiris, must go through these deep initiations in order to take on his divine role, his great contribution to all of creation. So when you are going through initiations, dark nights of the soul in your life, think of Isis and Osiris, think of all that they went through. And now they have risen. Now Osiris is the great god in the sky, right? And now Isis is this great, great goddess, and her son Horus rules as the sun god, and all is well again in the land. Now, through the love of Isis and by her rising again out of the underworld, she brings her beloved back to life, and she brings all of us, the whole land, back to life so that we all may live. Now, I want to show you this really powerful image, and this is found in the tunnel that leads to the Osirian in Abydos, Egypt. These writings here that you see were not made at the time of the Osirian, which is tens of thousands of years ago, but these writings were made more of the time around 1300 to 1200 BC by Pharaoh Merenptah, and this is the Book of Gates that he has written all throughout the tunnel that leads to the Osirian. Now, this is one of the most striking images from the Book of Gates. I just love this image. It is so beautiful. It shows the solar bark. Okay, this is the solar bark or the boat, and we have different deities. We have, for example, Isis here and Nephthys here, other deities lining the bark. This is the king Merenptah here bowing to all of these deities. And in the center, we have the Kepler beetle holding up the sun. Now below here, we have the god Nu. He is the one who rules the Nu, which is the primordial waters from which all things are birthed. And he is lifting the solar bark up out of the primordial waters so that the sun can be reborn. And who is receiving the sun? Now look at this. There are two figures upside down here. The first one that is closest to the sun and her fingertips are touching the sun is Nut. Nut is the Milky Way. She is the great cosmic goddess who wraps us in her love in the form of the Milky Way, which wraps around the earth. Now, holding her up and allowing her to reach out and receive the sun into her body, right? As the sun is reborn into the Milky Way once again, this is Osiris. And interestingly, in this image, his legs wrap around and form a circle. Oops, sorry. His legs wrap around and form a circle. And inside of that circle is written, "This is Osiris, and he encompasses the entire sky." So this is our potential, right? This is our potential when we go through these great initiations. He now has risen to this point where he even is holding up the Milky Way this is the important role that he has now in his form of divinity. Right, so he had to go on this great journey and this initiatory journey to rise into all that he was meant to be. And we can turn to him now, for he is so powerful and so benevolent. And so here he is holding up the great goddess Nut, the Milky Way, so that she can receive the sun and the sun can be fully rebirthed into the sky. Isn't this just incredibly beautiful? So all of this is being celebrated at the Lion's Gate. And this is the time when the sacredness of life is restored. Life is brought back to the land as the great goddess rises just before the sun in the form of the beautiful blue rainbow star Sirius. Now, the star Sirius appears blue to us in our sky today. What's really interesting is in some of the writings from ancient Greece, so about 2000, maybe 2500 years ago, they were writing very clearly about the same star Sirius, and they were saying that it's red. What does this mean? Now, this is a fascinating thing about the star Sirius, and this is proof that Sirius may be a binary star with the sun. We clearly have a very special relationship with Sirius. It is the brightest star in our sky. Only the planets would be brighter than Sirius at any time in our sky. And over history, over time, sometimes Sirius appears blue and sometimes she appears red. Now, the reason for this, as we have found out through scientific investigation, is when we are moving away from the star Sirius out in the vast, space of the sun and our solar system and how they move around in the great cycles. When we're moving away from Sirius, she appears red. When we're moving toward her, she appears blue. So if you look out in the sky at any point now to see Sirius, you will see she is blue. So we are moving closer and closer to this beautiful star. And I want to mention with the astrology, it's so fascinating at this very special moment, and this doesn't happen every year. We have not just one, but two great goddesses rising from the underworld. So Venus has just become the evening star. Venus has been in the underworld since early April and is now just in late July. She has just emerged as an evening star. So you can see her just after sunset in the west. And at the same time, Sirius in the Lion's Gate now is becoming a morning star. She has been in the underworld since the middle of May and is now emerging in the eastern sky just before dawn. So these two great goddesses, or we could say the goddess in all of her forms, have been in the underworld together and are now emerging together and bringing light and life back to the land, bringing her magic and her words of power. And this is to assist and support us all. So I really invite you to think about where in the world do you see the great goddess rising? Where do you see her coming back into power and leadership and rulership? Within each of us, certainly, and also in different world events. So she is coming back, and as above, so below. What happens in the sky happens here on earth, right? And we recognize that. Now, I want to take just a moment to mention this. If you are loving learning about these mysteries of ancient Egypt and Isis and Osiris, and you'd like to learn more about the Egyptian wisdom traditions, join me in Egypt. I'm going next in April 2025, and this is going to be such a powerful tour where we will be connecting with the mysteries of the great goddess and unlocking the light codes of Isis, Hathor, Seshet, Sekhmet, and Ma'at. We will be specifically visiting these great goddesses in their temples. We will visit Philae, Temple of Isis. We will visit Dendera, Temple of Hathor. We will find Seshet in all of the temples. And we will visit Sekhmet in her beautiful sacred chapel in Luxor Temple. And we will find Ma'at in many beautiful, powerful places. So we will journey to the temples. We will go inside of the Great Pyramid. We will explore the Giza Plateau. We will have our private visit between the paws of the Sphinx, where we'll have a beautiful sound healing and shamanic journey, and so much more. So this will be from April 15th to the 25th, 2025. Here is the link to learn more, which I will put in the description field below this video once we're done recording, but you can check it out anytime at my other website, which is jocelynstarfeather.com/Egypt-April-2025. I would love to have you join me there. Oh my goodness, it's going to be such a powerful, powerful experience. So we're going to move into the astrology now for the rest of the month. Okay, so we've set the context of the Lion's Gate, which opens our month of August. And it's important to note that this powerful Lion's Gate time sets an important energetic base point for us. The Lion's Gate is always an upgrade. It's an expansion each year. It is welcoming in more and more life, more and more possibilities. And it really gives us this bigger picture view of all that is becoming available to us. It is a portal. We pass through this portal and we are changed on the other side. So really make space for yourself at this time. It's really this whole upcoming week, I would say, from August, it's from the beginning of August and even late July, all the way through the 10th to the 12th of August is when the Lion's Gate is really strong. And this is, again, based on the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, and that changes depending on your latitude. So you can go into your Google search and look up, what date is the heliacal rising of Sirius exact in my city, right? And put your city in there. And it will tell you, because based on your latitude, Sirius might have her heliacal rising on August 4th, or might have her heliacal rising on August 8th. It really depends where you're located on the planet. But in any case, make space for yourself during these days to fully receive the gifts of the Lion's Gate and the calming energies of early August, because it's going to get wilder. And we want to have this really solid, grounded foundation in the calmness that we can get right now, that we can access right now. So I really invite you to do that and let this energetic base point be set for you at a new level. Let yourself fully receive the upgrades and the expansions, and then you'll be more easily able to navigate the wildness of what's coming next. So let me tell you about that. And the rest of this presentation is going to be much more astrological, but we've got to understand the Lion's Gate before we can go into all these other pieces. So here's what's happening next. And actually, this has just occurred at this time as I'm recording this call today on August 5th. So very, very early in the morning in New York time zone, we had Mercury stationing retrograde. And you can see here in this chart, Mercury is here at 4 degrees of Virgo at this moment, had just stationed retrograde. Now, interestingly, Mercury is nearly conjunct with Venus when he turns retrograde. And because he has been going forward and now he's going to change direction and go backward, he's going to have an exact conjunction with her in just a couple days. I'll talk about that in a minute. But what's really important to notice is that Venus is very present with Mercury as this retrograde period is starting, and then having an exact conjunction with him 2 days after it starts. So Venus is setting the energetic for this retrograde very, very strongly. What this means is that not only will we have the Mercury themes of a retrograde, which I'll talk more about on the next slide, but we also have the Venusian themes of it's almost like a Venus retrograde, because she is so deeply involved in the Mercury retrograde from the very beginning. So I'll tell you more about that in just a minute, but I want to also note here that Jupiter is at 15 degrees of Gemini. You can see Mars is at 10 degrees of Gemini and lining up to come into a conjunction with Jupiter. But also it's important to note that Jupiter is square to Saturn. It's not quite exact yet. They're going to have their exact square a little later in the month, around the 19th. But right now they're lining up for the square. And this is really significant because the whole time that Jupiter was in Taurus, we had a Jupiter sextile Saturn lineup. But right now we're moving into a more difficult Saturn and Jupiter relationship, which is a square. Now there's a lot of squares all throughout August. You're going to see this in all these charts. I'll show you a lot of squares. So let's just talk for a moment about what is a square. A square in astrology, when planets are 90 degrees apart from each other, this is what creates a square. And these angles create a really big opportunity that feels like a challenge. And so I want you to keep that in mind as we're exploring the other squares and the grand fixed cross and the grand mutable cross that I'm going to tell you about. We have a lot of squares and a lot of crosses in the August astrology. It's really important to remember this is not only meant to be really, really hard, although it definitely can be, but what it's actually meant to be is an opportunity. But when we fight it, when we resist it, when we don't trust the opportunity, that's when it feels really, really hard. So you can go into this month planning to make this easier on yourself by agreeing in advance to surrender to what's coming through. Okay. And to flow in alignment with it as much as you can. And especially to not hold on to what is old, because all of these squares are opportunities for us to grow and evolve, to let go of what is of the past and move forward into the future. But it's when we're resisting that and we're clinging to the past and holding on to the old energy or the old patterns or the old belief systems, that's when squares feel really, really hard. So with this Jupiter-Saturn square, which is going to be pretty prominent for the next couple months, we want to be really aware that our growth and expansion is on the other side of setting up new structures to support the future and releasing the old structures, Saturn, that have been holding us down, the old structures of the patriarchy in particular. Our growth and expansion lies on the other side of releasing those old structures. Also in this chart, the moon at 21 degrees of Leo is square to Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus. Another square, another opportunity in the form of a challenge. This is really heightening the energy of our freedom and our liberation. Uranus continues to be very active in our skies. Remember, we had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus at 21 degrees of Taurus on April 20th. Then we had the Mars-Uranus conjunction at 26 degrees of Taurus, conjunct the fixed star Algol on July 15th. These Uranian events have been changing the landscape of our world, and Uranus does not plan to stop now. Now, what we've got to keep in mind is that Uranus is the planet that stands for our freedom and our liberation, and he will break down and surprise us with unexpected twists in the plot. He will break down the old structures in order to help us have the breakthrough. So the moon is highlighting Uranus here. The moon moves quickly. It won't stay too long at 21 degrees of Leo. But at this moment, when Mercury is turning retrograde, the moon is pointing directly to Uranus and saying, remember, this is all happening for your freedom and your liberation. Now, here's a little bit more about Mercury retrograde. It will last from August 5th to the 28th. And Mercury will move from 4 degrees of Virgo to 21 degrees of Leo. So because this is starting out with Mercury almost conjunct Venus, and then they have their exact conjunction at 3 degrees of Virgo on August 7th, Venus brings themes of pleasure, beauty, love, relationships, and how we value ourselves into the recalibrations, the reworking, the rethinking, the reorganizing that we'll be asked to do during this retrograde time. Now, Mercury, of course, is leading the retrograde. So he's going to ask us to rethink, recalibrate, revise, rework. Remember that retrogrades bring us into all of the RE words around themes of work and career, because this retrograde is starting in Virgo, right? Work and career. So how are we in service? Are we happy in our work and our career? Are we fulfilling our purpose, or are we simply working to pay the bills? We may feel the need rising up to make big changes in this area of life. Also, Virgo themes of daily habits and health. What are the changes to your daily habits that you need to make to come into greater alignment for your life? Now, also, Virgo has themes of ritual and ceremony. So you may be called to reorganize your life to make ritual and ceremony a more regular part of your daily or weekly or monthly routine. You may be called to step into being the priest or priestess in a new way during this time. That will all be with the Mercury focus in Virgo. And then when Mercury moves backward into Leo, we're going to be working with the Leo themes as well. So those themes include creativity, self-expression, and bringing fun and play into your life, confidence, courage, and boldness, right? We do not want to be holding back from full self-expression. And if we are, this retrograde will certainly show us where and how that's happening so that we can make the corrections. And this is also about, with Leo, shining your bright light, visibility with your mission or message. So during Mercury retrogrades, we don't want to be leaping ahead with new plans and new actions and new, manifestations around these things. It probably is not going to work out as you planned if you're trying to leap ahead. Instead, we want to go within. We want to do a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling, a lot of walks in nature while we are considering, pondering these themes. And then we will come out of the Mercury retrograde around the end of August with a much clearer idea of what we want to change, and we can take better action after the retrograde is complete. So also when Mercury is in Leo, that again, and that will be from August 14th to September 9th, that will also be a potent time to work with your feline guides, right? Like Sekhmet, lion, tiger, jaguar guides will be really, really powerful to work with to help us make those recalibrations in our lives. So you can ask your big cat guides to assist and support you, especially during this Mercury retrograde. Now let's look closer at the Mercury-Venus conjunction. This is actually really beautiful. It will be happening at 3 degrees of Virgo. And so you can see that Mercury and Venus are here together at 3 degrees and 43 minutes of Virgo, Mercury moving retrograde. This will be at about 11:20 p.m. New York time on August 7th. So in this conjunction, and actually we want to keep in mind Mercury and Venus will be very close together from August 3rd to the 12th. They're kind of hanging out in those early degrees of Virgo, very close together during this time. So art, writing, and beautiful communications will be favored, but we want to take it slowly and thoughtfully since Mercury is retrograde. And whenever Venus and Mercury come together, art, writing, and beautiful communications are going to be favored. This is a little different with Mercury retrograde. We just want to take it slowly. Okay, now we're getting into some really big energies here as we move further into August. So on August 14th at approximately 11:30 a.m. New York time, we have the exact Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini. It's at 16 degrees of Gemini right here. You can see they've come together. Now, the thing is, this is going to be some conflicting energies that we feel around this time because Mars and Jupiter conjunctions typically bring confidence, boldness, big leaps forward, positive action, big picture advancements, very helpful for us in moving forward on a project, very helpful in claiming our evolution and our expansion. And so we may have those feelings or those inspirations or transmissions or a new understanding of our purpose, this kind of thing on that day. But again, it's like, wait, don't leap into it yet, because this Mercury Jupiter conjunction is forming a mutable grand cross. Now, what I mean by that is an actual cross is being drawn in the chart because they are exactly opposite the moon at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. And they are exactly square to both Saturn at 17 degrees of Pisces and Venus at 11 degrees of Virgo, who has now moved forward after her conjunction with Mercury and is now entering this grand cross in the mutable signs. This is very interesting. We've had the energetics of the previous full moon had a fixed grand cross. A fixed grand cross is very, very hard to move and get out of. Okay, but this one's a mutable grand cross. It's involving the mutable signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces. And so there is more flexibility here, but this is going to be a day when perhaps a new opportunity will be presented to you, but it will feel like a challenge. So as I said earlier, don't be holding on to what's old during this time. Really make sure you're letting go, releasing, not clinging to old patterns, not clinging to old limiting beliefs, because if you can release those things, you can move forward with the really powerful energetics of this mutable grand cross and receive the benefits of the Jupiter-Mars conjunction, which are confidence, boldness, big leaps forward, positive action, expansion, etc. Now, the other thing is to keep in mind Mercury's retrograde, right? So we're right in the middle of the retrograde at this point on August 15th. So we really want to wait. We really want to hold on before taking big leaps. And here's a little more about the Mars conjunct Jupiter and squares and oppositions that all form a mutable grand cross. So this is, like I said, power, confidence, boldness, but Mars and Jupiter will say, go for it, but everything else in the chart is telling us to wait and go slowly. So really, you might want to have a personalized chart reading to decide how to work with this day. Because depending on how this lands in your birth chart, I actually did a reading for a client recently where this was actually a really good day for them to take action, to go for it. It was very favorable the way it fell in their chart. But overall, for most of us, I would recommend exercising caution before moving ahead too quickly because of all those squares and the retrograde. This is a day when it can be easy to be overconfident or too bold, which also can happen with Mars conjunct Jupiter. So you don't want to end up in a conflict or a confrontation. You don't want your boldness to hurt a relationship or something else that you actually later realize you wanted to keep. And that's the risk here of jumping forward too fast during this transit. Being in Gemini, this Mars-Jupiter conjunction highlights our studies, technology, communications, and travel. And the squares to Saturn and Venus could bring challenges to long-term relationships and the stability, security, and structure that we value in our lives. So it's going to be an interesting day. We're really going to feel that push-pull between go for it and no, not yet, right? It's not the right time. We're going to really be feeling that. And then that leads us into this incredibly powerful and what I believe will be in the collective a very difficult transit, a full moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So we can see here in the chart, the sun is at 27 degrees of Leo, conjunct Mercury at 26 degrees of Leo, still moving backwards in retrograde. And the moon is at 27 degrees of Aquarius. What's really interesting about this chart is that these two, the sun and moon, are forming an exact by degree T-square with Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus. And not only that, but we have the asteroid Lilith here at 28 degrees of Scorpio, completing a grand fixed cross. So we're moving from a grand mutable cross on the 14th to a grand fixed cross on the 19th. And wow, that is a lot of squares and oppositions. That is a lot of energy of, say it again with me, an opportunity that feels like a challenge. So let's look a little deeper into this, okay? So the full moon, 27 degrees of Aquarius on August 19th. The sun will be at 27 degrees of Leo, the moon will be at 27 degrees of Aquarius, and I showed you where the grand fixed cross is. Also in this chart, we have the sun and moon trine and sextile to Chiron. So we're bringing Chiron in, although that's with a more positive angle. So let me show you that. So we have the moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius, and that is sextile to Chiron. The sun at 27 degrees of Leo, that is trine to Chiron at 23 Aries. So Chiron is a part of the mix too here. And what is Chiron? Chiron is the wounded healer, and Chiron is our deepest wound that through healing it, we learn how we can rise into being the healer and the teacher ourselves. So with Uranus and Lilith being such an important part of this grand fixed cross, this full moon, this transit is compelling us toward our freedom and our liberation. So remember, Uranus is the planet that stands for our freedom and liberation and will really break down some old structures or send us a curveball, an unexpected event to help us become free. Lilith, on the other hand, so going back to the chart here, the goddess Lilith right here, she's a very, very ancient goddess linked to Sumeria. And she is the revolutionary feminine who will not stand for the status quo. She is not okay with the status quo. She is not okay with the patriarchy. She is going to rebel against it. So interesting that she and Uranus are having a direct opposition on the same day as this exact full moon, and all together the sun, moon, and Lilith and Uranus are forming that fixed grand cross. This is going to be very tense. And if we are clinging to what is old and what must be cleared, because Uranus and Lilith are going to say, clear it all now, let go of it, release it, right? If we're still clinging to what they're trying to help you release, this day can be extremely uncomfortable. We definitely on this day will be feeling and experiencing a deep need to assert our freedom from old broken systems. And I believe in the collective, there can be a large systemic breakdown at this time. Something that seemed unbreakable could crumble and fail. It could be a major technology outage. I don't know. It could be something governmental, but something big can have a really large systemic breakdown. This is not to scare you at all. This is to help us be prepared, right? This is a day when something like that could happen. Now, for us in our personal lives, what's really more important to pay attention to is just to make sure we are not clinging to the old, because all of this is happening in service to a new future with that moon in Aquarius. It is putting the staff in the ground of the future. But it may be painful, or it may feel painful as we make these changes. And that's what the grand fixed cross represents. Remember, squares and grand crosses are opportunities that feel like a challenge. So during this time, I invite you to really tune into what freedom and liberation feel like to you, and claim that in your life. And make sure you're not clinging to any old patterns or limiting belief systems, so that you can receive the gifts of this transit, the freedom and liberation that Uranus and Lilith can bring. That is what we are really meant to receive here. But we've got to break down anything old that is standing in our way of us receiving that. And we will get support with breaking down the old, definitely on this day. This is the day. This is one of the 3 days that the Democratic National Convention will be happening in the US. So that's very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot more that could be said about that. But I'm gonna pause on that topic for now. So to close our time together here, I just wanted to note this, right? I mentioned this earlier, one of these core tenets of the ancient Egyptian wisdom: as above, so below. The ancient Egyptians always looked to what was happening in the sky. They had a very, very complex system with the Egyptian decans, right? They looked at every 10 degrees of the sky. We look at the zodiac signs that are each 30 degrees. They looked at every 10-degree segment of the sky and really paid close attention to what stars, what constellations, what planets are there. And they knew that would be mirrored in what was happening on the Earth. So it's important to really recognize this now, that at the same time as we're experiencing the wildest and most liberating planetary transits in the skies, now is also the perfect time here for us on Earth to reaffirm our own power and magic, take a cosmic leap, and with the retrograde this month especially, recalibrate your life, rewrite your story to come into alignment with the highest potentials for you. We are being called right now in a really big way to embrace the unknown, because the unknown holds the keys to our freedom and our liberation. Miracles are becoming possible for all of us. More and more, I hear about more miracles every day. The breakthroughs are happening more and more rapidly. All of these changes are in service to our bright and vibrant future and our freedom-filled future. So remember that this intensity, all the intensity we're feeling, is our own magic and power coming back, right? And all of this is being dramatically activated by the Lion's Gate in early August. So, wow, what an incredibly powerful time. a very beautiful time, and it may feel like a very challenging time, especially around those dates between August 14th to the 19th and days surrounding that as we go through those really catalyzing transits. So just a reminder as I close here, this call, if you would like to come to Egypt with me in April 2025 and learn more about all of this, we will have the astrology deeply interwoven with what we learn about in Egypt. In fact, this time in April is going to be an incredible time astrologically because the North Node during these dates and surrounding dates in April 2025, we will have the North Node conjunct Venus, Mercury, Saturn, and Neptune at various different times, and some of them very like multiple planets all conjunct the North Node at once in April. It's really powerful. It's really amazing, and we will be working with all of those future-oriented energies, helping us to build our radical new world in absolutely beautiful ways. So you can go to this link to learn more about, and you can see the full itinerary there. You can also see a tour that's coming before this one from April 9th to the 14th, where we will go to the Siwa Oasis and connect with the oracular priestess energetics there. But go to the link, you'll see everything there. It's jocelynstarfeather.com/Egypt-April-2025. So I wish you all a beautiful, powerful month of August. Definitely come back to this video as we go through the month and watch it again. Remember what the energies are so you can receive the most from every single day, from every single transit this month. And I will see you again soon. So much love, everybody. Please do tell me in the comments what you think about this video, what you think about the astrology of August 2024. It is such a powerful time. And blessed Lionsgate and blessed new moon to all of you. And may you have a really powerful and healing Mercury retrograde. Bye for now.